We're going to get started in just a minute.
Do we have a quorum yet?
No.
We do online. We do online. Okay, yeah. All right. Shall we get going to our?
Okay, yep. We're going to get started. If the folks in the back could play the video, that would be lovely.
Recording in progress.
3 counties, 24 cities, working together, accomplishing more than any of us could alone. Whether your roots run generations deep, or you recently moved to Greater Portland, you are a part of Metro, the nation's only regional government elected by the people. Planning for the future, preserving what we love. Let's keep our region thriving for decades to come.
I'm Micah Reese, and I'm the Dive Safety Officer here at the Oregon Zoo, and safety is a big part of my job. Some of the things we consider here is diver safety. I'm out here at the Oregon Zoo, and you're at the Metro Regional Center. The council chamber is located on the 3rd floor of this building. In the event of fire or fire alarm, please exit through the door in the northeast corner of the room, go down the steps to the 2nd floor, and exit through the main entrance by the reception desk and gather in the courtyard outside the entrance. In the event of a medical or fire emergency, please call 911 and notify the security agent at the front desk. The nearest defibrillator is mounted on the steps leading from the reception desk down to Grand Avenue. Thank you.
Good morning. I'd like to call to order the Metro Council meeting and work session of March 10th, 2026. Georgia, will you please call the roll for attendance?
Yes. Counselor Nolan?
Present. Good morning.
Good morning. Counselor Simpson?
Present. Good morning.
Counselor Gonzalez?
Present. Good morning.
Counselor Rosenthal?
Present.
Counselor Lewis?
Present.
Counselor Wong will be here shortly, and Council President Peterson.
Here. Thank you. All right. We will move on to our public communication. I will now open public communication on non-agenda items. Georgia, will you please describe to the audience our procedures for public communications?
Yes. If you are testifying on non-agenda items, so this does not include the resolution that we'll be seeing in a little bit, now is the time to do so. If you are testifying in person, please sign up by filling out a blue card in the back of the room and bringing it up to me. If you are testifying on Zoom or by phone, please sign up by using the raise hand function in the reactions or more menus or by dialing *9. When it is your turn to testify, I'll call in your name or phone number. For those on Zoom, click accept to be promoted to a panelist. Your Zoom window will close briefly before you rejoin as a panelist. You can turn on your camera if you'd like. Testimony is limited to 3 minutes, and the timer begins when you begin speaking. Please state your name for the record before testifying. You do not need to give your physical address. I do see one person with their hand raised in the audience, Matthew Edwards. If you are testifying on non-agenda items, now is the time to do so. But if you are testifying on the resolution 26-5570, please put your hand down. Okay, I'm going to promote Matthew Edwards to a panelist now.
Hello, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Hello to the counselors. I don't have prepared statements this morning, but I wanted to kind of put some preliminary feelers out. I'm one of the primary organizers of the Save Lloyd campaign, the grassroots initiative concerned with the impending demolition of Lloyd Center. So our group is interested in exploring any alternatives that exist to what we view as a very wasteful and tragic teardown of the existing mall. And you've already heard from Matt Kelly, one of our other members, in one of your recent council meetings. And the reason why we are interested in talking with Metro is that we're aware that you're interested in this concept of a reuse mall. And even the Swedish Retuna mall that was recently going viral online apparently came to Portland and presented to Metro, and maybe was part of the inception of this idea. But we are very interested in just pursuing this conversation and seeing what possibilities might exist. The owners of the mall have said that they would entertain any offers about selling a part of the mall or part of the property, and any number of possibilities may exist there. So I guess that's mostly what I have to say for now. On Thursday, our group plans to come in person to the Metro Chamber and try to further this conversation. I think we were just a little confused as to what the right day of this particular week was to come and bring new agenda items. That being said, yeah, if there are any questions or any immediate thoughts or reactions to what I'm saying, I'd be curious to know how to best proceed with you all about this.
Thank you, Matthew. I guess my response would be that we will have staff reach out to you if we have contact information for you. George is nodding her head, and we'll hear what you have to say, and obviously try and get as much information as we can. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Okay, Council President Peterson, I do not see anyone else with their hands raised in the audience for non-agenda items.
Great, thank you. With that, we'll close public communication on non-agenda items and move on to our resolution number 26-5570 for the purpose of demonstrating Metro support for shared prosperity through a strong regional economy and creating a job-ready lands program. Councilors, this one resolution before us today. Before we turn to our regularly scheduled work session, earlier this year, we discussed legislation to create jobs-ready land program and update the comprehensive economic development strategy to include a coordinated regional strategy for targeted industries. Councilor Simpson has the sponsor of this legislation. Would you like to reintroduce the topic?
Thank you again, Madam President, and thank you all. Good morning and welcome, colleagues, staff, members of the public. If we can get the slide deck up and loaded, Georgia. Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here with you all virtually with Councilors Lewis and Gonzalez. A huge thank you to the both of them for their dedication and time that they put into this process and then to this resolution. As well as planning directors Catherine Charlo to further discuss the recommendations from the council work group economic development work group, and the resolution number 265570, which we will consider for adoption today. We also have some regional partners here who are going to share testimony after the presentation. So please allow some space for them. And since our last work session on January 27th, staff have met with each of you to work on and to answer your questions, and the work group has incorporated feedback from our work session. Thank you for your ideas for strengthening our work. We also look forward to finalizing this effort with you today and directing staff to bring back a work plan to implement our recommendations. Next slide, please. So you may be wondering why we're talking about this and why now. And as many of you remember from our last work session, that our region is seeing the troubling trends of job loss and slow population growth. In 2025, our region lost over 14,000 jobs. Unemployment rates in Oregon rose to 5.1% in 2025, which is the highest it has been in over a decade outside of the recession. And many of our large employers in the region are reporting closures and crisis. And since 2020, we have experienced stagnant population growth. Much slower growth rates, creates pressure on household budgets and cuts to critical services. And even more, to put it in more focus, and new strategies are needed to attract and retain businesses. Metro has a proven history of planning for the future to address this changing context. Next slide, please. So the time for action towards equitable growth and shared prosperity is right now. Slower growth creates pressure on household budgets and cuts to critical services. More focus and new strategies are needed to attract and retain businesses. And we also have the history of this planning and of this to bring these things into context. Next slide. So Metro needs new strategies and tools to meet this critical moment, but Metro's work has been supporting the regional economy for many years. Metro plays a number of important roles in supporting the local economy, and these are just a few examples. We play a role by partnering with Travel Portland in attracting convention groups to the region and boosting tourism. Tourism in the greater Portland area is a $5.5 billion a year industry in 2024. The Oregon Zoo remains the top paid attraction in the state, bringing in 1.7 million visitors annually. Our region's incredible access to nature is sometimes termed the second paycheck for our residents. And many of us invest in the care for parks and natural areas that add to the economic value of our region and serves as one of our attractors for talent to the region. Investments from the Metro's housing bond support more than 3,000 construction jobs annually. Our long-range planning and forecasting work, in addition to grants to local governments, support growth in existing commercial corridors and also for future growth outside the UGB. And we have worked as both a convener and partner to secure job growth, advance land readiness, and major transportation initiatives. Next slide. So before we jump into the recommendations and the resolution, I want to ground us all in the parameters that the work group used to think about economic development. There are a lot of definitions of economic development out there, and there's not and this is not meant to be a brand new definition or reinvent the wheel, but this is how the work group has been thinking about what Metro is trying to achieve with this work. We have been working from the assumption that economic development means strategies and programs that both create new jobs and retain and expand existing businesses. The jobs we are attracting are high quality, meaning they create family wage incomes, and the growth that comes from these jobs benefit all people. Next slide. So to address economic challenges emerging in this region, I've asked President Peterson to convene a work group in 2025 of spring. Myself, Councilor Lewis, and Councilor Gonzalez, and Metro staff from the Council Office, Planning Department, and Government Affairs Office met monthly between April and December of 2025. The charge of the work group was to identify gaps and opportunities for the new economic development actions and policies. And the goal was to bring back recommendations to the council of short-term interventions that could be implemented within 5 years that Metro could take to support job growth and business retention in our region. We took on 3 phases of that work. The first was grounding ourselves in the current economic conditions of our region and what role Metro has historically played in shaping the economy. And since the pandemic, our region has recovered more slowly than our peer, and population growth and job creation has not rebounded to what it was before 2020. Through Metro's leadership in coordinating transportation investments, urban planning, spectator venues, and land use, we have a critical impact on the regional economy, but our central mission has not been to lead on things like financial incentives or for job creation. Counselors and staff worked first in this group to understand the various roles Metro plays, and importantly, what is not our role in this important work. We defined 3 critical roles that Metro could play in the work: convener, policymaker, and funder. The second phase explored what peer regions do to support and expand their economies. This part of the process was eye-opening, showing that the greater Portland region is significantly behind our peer regions in several key aspects of economic development, including tax policy, business incentives, and land readiness. The third phase was to spend time reviewing potential actions Metro could take to support economic development, and crucially, how we might coordinate with partners in both the public and private sectors. In December 2025 and January 2026, counselors and staff met with many regional partners to discuss the work group and the draft recommendations. And in January 2026, counselors and staff presented the 4 draft recommendations to the full Metro Council at a work session for discussion as well as impact. I'm going to ask Councilors Lewis and Councilor Gonzalez and Director Chialo to speak to the next few slides. Councilor Lewis will review the work group recommendations we shared with you at the last work session, and Councilor Gonzalez will talk about what we learned from our partners. And I've asked our PDR, our Planning Development and our Planning and Development Director, Catherine Chiarlo, to talk about the staff's work on the resolution and how councilors' comments have been reflected. Councilor Lewis, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Councilor Simpson. For the next slide, I have the opportunity to review the 4 recommendations that the work group brought forward and the full council was able to engage, particularly at our January work session. Again, this is a body of work that took us between 10 months in the last year as a work group to think very carefully about the balance between identifying and trying to fill existing gaps, but also figuring out what Metro's lane is within the sphere of economic development. These recommendations are not everything, but they are important and appropriate steps to meet the moment and to move us and our entire state onto the next stage. Staff has worked with our DEI department to refine these recommendations and will continue to work closely with them so that we can identify equitable strategies and outcomes attached to each of them. So again, the first recommendation is the Housing Production Accelerator Fund. This recommendation came out of the Regional Housing Coordination Strategy and was elevated and underscored by this work group. We saw the connection between housing production and economic development and the importance of the opportunity to leverage the construction excise tax money quickly to get the ball rolling. This recommendation directed the COO to create a Housing Production Accelerator Fund that's been funded with a one-time investment of $5 million of construction excise tax revenue. It also directs the COO to take necessary steps to utilize the funds to support 5 specific activities to speed up housing production and help address our housing crisis. Strategy number 1, create pre-development support. Strategy number 2, expand brownfield grants. Strategy 3, support local strategies. Strategy 4, give technical assistance funding. And strategy 5, explore a regional land bank. This recommendation has already moved, and as Metro Council, I'll remind us that we voted on this January 8th, and it's resolution 255540 for the record. And we have staff busily working to make this work actually happen on the ground. So the next of our agenda, or our work group recommendations, is the focus on leadership and accountability with the SEDS. In 2026, our region is up to complete an update for the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, better known as SEDS, and it's our 5-year cycle required by the federal government to qualify for federal grant money within the sphere. GPI is leading the update process, with Metro supporting the partner convening and technical work. This recommendation directs Metro to create a regional strategy for identifying target industries. This work will be pulled from existing EOAs and will align priorities of regional partners to determine which industries and strategies that we want as a region in order to attract jobs. The strategy is responsive to the requests of many partners and advocates after the last SEDS update. The results help us prioritize the kind of land that they will need to get ready to attract jobs here. Strategy, or recommendation number 3, is creating a jobs-ready land program. This is exciting and often kind of what I lead with, but it's buried here in number 3. But this is our opportunity to direct resources and coordinate staff efforts to address gaps between priority industry needs and available land. The work will start with an update to the land inventory. Then Metro will work with identified regional partners, including cities, to identify priority sites that need help with success. And the success of this program relies on the regional process and agreement. As a region, we'll comb through the data and prioritize which sites have the most potential. And then the next phase will be to seek funding together as a region to support our target sites to become ready for industry. One result could be that these sites are listed on a national database to recruit businesses, but there's a lot of work to do to get to that outcome and to choose which exact tools and consultants we use. And then the 4th council work group recommendation is Metro leadership integration into the regional economic development work. It's important that the resolution directs staff to integrate economic development considerations and impacts into our work, because this is a cultural shift that will take time and leadership from council. The resolution directs us to ensure we are thinking about the job impacts when we develop policies, dedicate staff time to outreach with partners, working on the economy across the region, and bring issues and ideas to council, both at regular meetings as well as work sessions. Now I hand this presentation over to Councilor Gonzalez for the next set of slides.
Great. Thank you, Councilor Lewis and Councilor Simpson, for your leadership. I'm so happy to be here with y'all, to be talking about this very important work again. As a part of this process, we met with a whole bunch of different folks and stakeholders and partners, recognizing that to create the economy that we are proud of and that our children will be proud of, it takes many hands and many partners. And so I want to thank all the folks that are here in person too, to provide testimony and share some words as well from that work. Thank you so much for being here, y'all. So as I mentioned, we met with folks from a whole bunch of different sectors, including GPI, the Port, Prosper Portland, Westside Economic Alliance, the Home Builders Association, Oregon Business Council, Thousand Friends of Oregon, several local chambers, mayors groups, and business associations to really inform this group and this work. And we also held our first economic development boardroom roundtable earlier in February to start relationship building around some of this work as well. And many of those names that I mentioned were part of that discussion. And additional folks that were there were Better Business PDX, the Black American Chamber, Columbia Corridor Association, the Hispanic Metropolitan Chamber, and many of the other names that I had mentioned previously as well. I think overall the feedback that we received was positive and affirming, recognizing that everyone has a role to play in supporting economic development and economic prosperity, and also that it's going to require a collaboration that helps us understand that we all have a lane to swim in and that we should be exceptional in that lane, and then look to bring in the value from all of the other partners and to not reinvent the wheel. As Councilor Lewis mentioned, there's a lot of focus and accountability on SEDS and what this next chapter of it could be. Folks also talked a lot about how there seems to be a lot of conversations happening across the state for economic development right now, which is great, but this need to stay coordinated. We know Multnomah County has a similar group. The governor and the state have a prosperity council that was recently convened. And so there's clearly an energy there. And so the opportunity for Metro to step in with the work that we do and the leadership that we can bring is important. I often say that one of Metro's superpowers is our ability to convene tables and to bring people together. And folks' feedback to us, I think, has been really consistent that this process needs to include many voices, and we have the opportunity to shape something not just different, but something new and better than what our region has ever done before. And lastly, I think from those groups and from the council as well, have heard a very strong desire to continue to center racial equity and racial justice in this work, which to me just sings to my heart. And I'm very grateful that folks and partners continue to say that as a priority for the region, especially as we navigate some of the national challenges that we have. So I know that we have some folks that are going to be providing testimony soon. I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for making time in your busy schedules to support us and give this council the ability to deploy some tools. And there's no one better than Director Catherine Charlo to talk about specifically what some of that work is going to be and what our policy and resolution does going forward.
Thank you so much, Councilor Gonzalez, and thank you to the rest of the council for having us here to talk about this. I'm Catherine Charlo. I'm the Director of the Planning, Development, and Research Department, for the record. Actually, Councilor Simpson is going to walk you through the resolution in front of you, but I'm going to give a little bit of foreshadowing around that resolution, which is going to suggest a work plan that staff bring back to flesh out this work. And I think that sometimes work plan can sound like a pretty bureaucratic exercise. I want to make sure that the way I articulate this is really as program design. This is taking the pretty high-level concepts that this group of your peers has been working on over the past year and starting to ground them into what are the actual steps we're going to take, who are we going to take those steps with, what process, what check back with you all, and what outcomes do we expect. So that's what you will hear from Councilor Simpson in a couple moments. But before we go there, I did want to first thank you all for the briefings that we've been able to have with you over the past couple months. I think we've had a chance to talk with each of you 2 or 3 times. Thank you for the work session in January. That gave us as staff some information to better support this work. And what I wanted to do before turning it over to Councilor Simpson is reflect back a few of the things we heard from you in those briefings and at that work session. So very specifically, we heard from you all that you want us as Metro staff, which is the planning department, but it is also the COO's office, it is the council office, it's the GAPD folks, and there's likely others as well. Certainly venues could be a part of this in the future. But what we heard is that you want us to do several things as we develop this work plan. You want us to ground this work in Metro's equity and climate commitments and show how the actions support those commitments. You'd like us to collaborate with Metro's DEI department to incorporate racial equity into program design, not as an afterthought, but as a part of the process and outcomes as we develop the program. I've already talked with Director Owens-Wilson. I'm excited to work with her. Our teams are going to work together to really try to emphasize the inclusive, broad-based job creation aspects that can come out of this work. And I know Councilor Simpson spoke to that we integrate economic development work with existing strategic direction and investments. A couple that were specifically identified are the Regional Transportation Plan update and the ongoing Future Vision Plan update. I think there is more that we can do as we start to collaborate with other Metro departments and look forward to bringing that back to you, either as part of the work plan at a high level or moving forward in implementation of this work. And then finally, we heard that we should be sure to work with a wide group of partners. I appreciate that some of them are here today. We've had conversations with a pretty broad group of sectors and experts, and we know that those conversations need to be grounded even more in sort of detail and outcomes and shared definitions as we move the work forward. So we will be doing that between now and when we bring this back to you. And then we heard that you would like to be involved and you'd like to hear how progress is going, and you would like to be able to weigh in. And we fully intend, as we bring back the structure, the program structure, to make sure that we honor that and check in with you on how that looks. So I guess in closing, before I turn it back over to Councilor Simpson, we're just excited to work with you all on this. We appreciate the leadership and the challenge of the council work group, and really appreciate the rest of the council taking the time and helping us think through how to make this a better effort. And with that, I think I will turn it back over to Councilor Simpson.
Thank you, Director Chiarlo. So councilors, the resolution before us today directs the COO to establish a work plan by the end of this fiscal year with the following 5 actions. Number 1, create and implement a Job Ready Lands program that engages local partners, leaders, and organizations that represent a range of sectors, including economic development, business, labor, environment, agriculture, housing, and workforce development to set the stage for business growth and expansion by developing a vacant land inventory and prioritizing areas for investment in consultation with this council. Number 2, continue to collaborate with local partners to create an updated comprehensive economic development strategy, also known as CEDS, that includes a coordinated regional strategy for targeted industries that support racial equity, economic mobility, and share prosperity for all. Number 3, integrate a strategic economic development focus into Metro's ongoing work, including land use and transportation planning work, venues and tourism, and key Metro functions. Number 4, prioritize counselor and staff participation and leadership in regional and state organizations focused on supporting our region's economy and share prosperity. And number 5, conduct this work in alignment with Metro's racial equity and climate goals. Next slide. If passed, COO Madrigal will direct staff to create a work plan to move forward with these actions by the end of this fiscal year. I'm excited and eager to move this work forward, so let's get this done, please, please, please. And with that, President Peterson, and to our partners, we are happy to hear the words that you have to share with us. I'm so sorry I'm not there to be there with you, but I'm really, really happy that you are able to share with us directly the importance of this topic with our respective communities. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Simpson. Thank you, councilors. Thank you, Director Chiarlo. Much appreciated. I think when we started this journey a couple of years ago, we didn't know where we were going to land. I'm very happy to see the progress that's been made and the acknowledgement that we have been working in the economic development space, but focusing it and making it relevant to today's issues is probably the biggest leap forward that we can make with our partners who have kindly come today to share a little bit of their thoughts. So I will move to public comment for those who have asked to speak on this agenda. Georgia, would you like to read the procedures and call on those signed up to testify?
Yes. If you are testifying on resolution number 26-5570, now is the time to do so. If you are testifying in person, please sign up by filling out a blue card in the back of the room and bringing it up to me. If you are testifying on Zoom or by phone, please sign up by using the raise hand function in the reactions or more menus, or by dialing *9. When it is your turn to testify, I'll call on your name or phone number. For those on Zoom, click accept to be promoted to a panelist. Your Zoom window will close briefly before you rejoin as a panelist. You can turn on your camera if you'd like. Testimony is limited to 3 minutes. The timer begins when you begin speaking. Please state your name for the record before testifying. You do not need to give your physical address. So the first person that we have to testify, and we are in a work session setup, but you're going to go and testify right in these empty seats up here. And you can choose any of the 4 that you want. First person we have to testify is Stephen Green.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Council President and councilors, COO Madrigal. My name is Stephen Green. My pronouns are he, him, and L. I'm a Portland business owner, founder of Vanport Studio, and the co-founder of Better Portland, an organization working to support entrepreneurs, small businesses across the city and region. I'm here today to support Resolution 26 5570 and encourage Metro to prioritize economic development as a core part of your work moving forward. The reality is that Portland region is in an inflection point. Recent economic reports show that our region lost roughly 15,000 jobs in 2025, while many other metro areas across the country continued to grow. At the same time, population growth has slowed, exports have declined, and housing production is at some of the lowest levels we've seen in more than a decade. And yet the stakes couldn't be higher. The Portland metro region represents about 40% of Oregon's population, but nearly 60% of the state's economic output. When our regional economy struggles, it doesn't just affect Portland, it impacts the entire state. That's why Metro's role matters so much. Economic development isn't separate from the work Metro already does, it's deeply connected to it. Whether we're talking about transportation systems that move workers and goods, land use decisions that determine where family wage jobs can grow, or regional investments that make this a place where companies and entrepreneurs want to build their future. As a business owner, I can tell you that talent, innovation, and ideas still live here. Portland has always been a place where creativity and entrepreneurship thrive, but ideas alone aren't enough. We need to build economies and ecosystems to do that. That means making sure we have job-ready land, strong infrastructure, regional coordination, and a clear signal that this is a region serious about supporting businesses, their growth, and the opportunity for everyone. Economic development is not just about companies, it's about people having access to good jobs, communities having thriving small businesses, and the region having the tax base to invest in housing, parks, and transportation. Metro has the ability to convene partners, align strategy across jurisdictions, and make sure our region is competitive with other peer cities that are aggressively investing in their economic futures. Simply put, if we want a thriving, equitable, and resilient Portland region, economic development has to be part of that strategy. Thank you for your leadership and for your commitment to this future region. A couple things that kind of come to mind for me as I think about this work. I spent 10 years working in economic development and real estate development for the city of Portland. I remember when I interviewed, coming over from the world of banking, and I asked one of the employees in the group interview, what was it like working here? And one of the employees said, we're always thinking about getting ready, fixing to do something, but never quite doing it. That made no sense to me as a business owner. It makes a ton of sense to me today. As you folks work on this work, understand from the business's standpoint, our lives don't work in 5-year increments or even annual increments. They work in quarters and months. And so as you're building things out, how can you build that into the pacing so that we can come along for that journey with you, but also be able to help you get those wins and successes? And be there. We want to be able to support this. I love that you called out that you want to build relationships. I've always said there's a difference between outreach and relationships. Outreach is something we do to someone. A relationship was something we do with someone. Right now, we need relationships in the business community, and folks like me are excited to show up. So thank you for this work, and we look forward to continuing to partner with you.
Thank you for being there quarter to quarter to quarter to quarter to quarter.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. Next, we have Dan Eisenbeis.
Good morning.
Morning. President Peterson, members of council, for the record, my name is Dan Eisenbeis. I use he, him pronouns, and I serve as the Regional Affairs Manager at the Port of Portland. Thank you for the opportunity to express the Port's support today for Resolution 265570. The Port is a public agency whose mission is to build shared prosperity for the region through travel, trade, and economic development. We operate major economic engines for the region, including 3 marine terminals, 6 industrial parks, and 3 airports. The Port appreciates the efforts of Councilors Simpson, Gonzalez, and Lewis, Metro staff, and the full council to identify Metro actions to support economic growth within our region. We appreciate the recognition of why this matters, as well as Metro having focused on how to leverage its core competencies while supporting the efforts of partners. We are grateful that councilors and staff have engaged the Port in numerous discussions about how we can better coordinate and align collective efforts in the region to promote economic development. At the Port, we know that achieving our mission requires effective coordination and collaboration with our regional partners. Economic development is a team sport, and we look forward to working with you on next steps. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you. Next, we have Nate McCoy. I'm going to promote you to a panelist now.
All right, can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Yep.
Sir.
All right, thank you for having me. Thank you, Council President, Metro Councilors, for the opportunity to speak today. Very excited to be here. For the record, my name is Nate McCoy, President and CEO of the National Association of Minority Chapter, also known as NAMAC Oregon, and dually wearing the hat as interim executive director for the Black Business Association of Oregon. Both are trade associations representing design and construction firms, subcontractors, goods and service businesses, and workforce professionals of color who are directly involved in supporting and building the infrastructure, housing, and development projects that support our regional economy and communities. We're here to heavily support the Regional Economic Growth and Jobs Ready Lands programming. From our perspective, the work Metro is doing around economic development is a proposed Job Ready Lands program is both timely and vitally important. Our region is experiencing real economic challenges. We all know, from job losses to businesses choosing to expand in other regions. If we want to remain competitive and attract employers that provide family wage jobs, we need to ensure that the region has sites that are not just designated for employment, but actually ready for development. Too often, land may exist on paper, but lacks the infrastructure, transportation access, environmental readiness, or coordinated planning necessary for employers to move forward quickly. When companies are looking to invest, they often choose regions that have already done the work prepared for those sites. A Job Ready Lands program can help close that gap, position the Portland region to compete more effectively, which we all want. For our members, economic development also means opportunity. Time is money. When employment lands are activated, that creates demand for construction, infrastructure improvements, site preparation, and housing development. These projects create living wage jobs, apprenticeship opportunities, and pathways for small businesses to participate in building the region's future, including the tax base. We also appreciate Metro's focus on aligning this work with housing production, which you all are doing a great job, transportation planning, and workforce development. When job centers, housing, and infrastructure are planned together, it strengthens the regional economy and helps ensure workers can live and work in the same communities they reside in. At NAMAC Oregon and BBAO, our members are ready to help build the projects and infrastructure that will support the next path and phase of economic growth. We appreciate Metro's leadership in advancing this conversation into action, and we look forward to partnering in ways that ensure the benefits of the regional development reaches businesses, workers, and communities across the region, in particular, communities of color. Let's take our shared values and, as Stephen Green said, turn them into measurable actions and strengthen our economic development through real execution and coordination. We want to not have lip service, but we want to have actions, and I think the Metro Council is positioned to do that. So thank you for inviting us here today, and we look forward to being partners with you all as we move forward in implementing. So appreciate the time.
Thank you, Nate.
Thank you. All right, next we have Evan Goss-Lamel. I don't see you in the virtual audience. If you could raise your hand. Okay, we will come back to you. Next, we have Elizabeth Mazzara Myers.
Good morning.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. For the record, Elizabeth Mazzara Myers, Executive Director of the West Side Economic Alliance. WA is a member-based nonprofit advocating for a healthy economic environment on the west side of the Portland metropolitan region. Our work centers on promoting economic opportunity, supporting a well-trained, well-paid workforce, and advancing policies that strengthen community and business vitality. What makes WA unique is our approach. We bring together private sector employers with public agencies, labor partners, and nonprofit stakeholders to have the hard policy conversations needed to build a vibrant, sustainable economy. These cross-sector partnerships give us a clear, ground-level understanding of what it takes to attract and attain business investment in our region. The opportunity to provide invited testimony today is especially meaningful as Oregon continues to face significant economic headwinds. I'm sure you've all heard of the March 2025 Business Oregon and University of Oregon study. That should have been a wake-up call. I was surprised when I didn't see it as a headline in every newspaper throughout last spring. Nearly 400 businesses were interviewed. More than a quarter of those had been approached by out-of-state recruiters. And here's what we learned. When an out-of-state recruiter got to one of our businesses, 68% either left Oregon or made their next investment outside of Oregon. This is real numbers. This is real data. It's a clear signal that we cannot take our economic competitiveness for granted. Layer on that some of the numbers you've already heard from other testimony. Earlier this year, Oregon was hitting levels not seen since the Great Recession. December 2025, we hit 5.2, unemployment 1 full point higher than the rest of the nation. So we must, and you heard from Stephen Green about the layoffs. It's not just unemployment, but we're literally shedding jobs by the tens of thousands. For many years, our strong population growth and for many years, it was our strong population growth and the success of several anchor employees that created a sense of economic security. But those two trends masked deeper issues. Now, as both migration and major employer expansion cool, the underlying fragility of Oregon's economic foundation is being exposed. This is why I'm encouraged by Metro Council's commitment to a strategy that recognized the urgency of the moment. As I think you all know, over the past year, WA has developed recommendations to help the region better account for and activate employment land. Job-ready land, supported by the right systems and tools, is essential if we want to retain employers, grow our tax base, and attract new investments. We're going to be coming sometime in April to provide those recommendations, but here's the headline: gross acreage doesn't tell the whole story. We need to better understand what land we have and what the land is what we need to activate the land appropriately. We urge Metro to continue bringing private sector voices into this work. Our members possess deep expertise and firsthand knowledge of what it takes to secure investor confidence and create the conditions where businesses can grow and stay in our region. We have many committee partners in the corporate and business community who want to be part of the solution. Thank you for identifying the opportunity of this moment and for stepping into it with open eyes and a clear vision, as well with energy and enthusiasm. WA stands ready to support this work, to build partnerships, and contribute constructively to strategies that move our region and state forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Johanna Para. I'm going to promote you to panelist now.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi, good morning. Council President Peterson and members of Metro Council, good morning, and thank you for allowing me the time to be here. My name is Joanna Parra, and I'm here today on behalf of the Washington County Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber represents nearly 800 businesses and over 80,000 jobs across Metro region. The Chamber strongly supports Resolution 265570 and the recommendations of the Economic Development Work Group. Our region is facing a challenging economic moment. Oregon lost thousands of jobs last year. Population growth has slowed, and Metro region is increasingly competing with other metro areas across the nation for employers and investment. Jobs and economic opportunity are leaving Oregon, not just our region. For the businesses we represent, regional competitiveness matters. Employers looking to expand or relocate need certainty that sites are available and ready for development, and that the region is aligned around economic growth. That is why we are particularly encouraged by the proposal to create a job-ready lands program. One of the most consistent challenges that we hear from employers, site selectors, and economic development partners is that while employment land may exist on paper, it is often not truly developed already due to infrastructure gaps, access limitations, or other constraints. Refreshing the region's employment lands inventory, identifying priority sites for investment, and working collaboratively with local governments and partners to prepare those sites for development will position the region to compete for job-creating industries. We also appreciate the focus on updating the region's comprehensive economic development strategy and strengthening coordination between local governments, economic development organizations, and the private sector. This will help ensure that we are working together to grow the economy and retain businesses that already call this region home. When our region succeeds in attracting and growing employment felt broadly, through family wage jobs, opportunities for small businesses, and the tax bases that support our services for our communities that our communities rely on. At the Chamber, we have 5 diversity business councils, and as a liaison to the Latino Business Advisory Council and the Black Advisory Business Council, I know that supporting small businesses and creating opportunities in our diverse region matters. We appreciate Metro's leadership in advancing these efforts, and we welcome continued collaboration with the business community as this work moves forward. I thank you for the opportunity to testify today, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can you do one last call for Evan Goslamel? But not seeing them in the audience. All right, Council President Peterson, that is all of the testimony for this agenda item.
Thank you. Before we go into, first of all, I want to say thank you to everybody who came and testified. Very helpful, and true partnerships are built on conversations like this one. And I'm looking forward to the next steps that you'll all take together. Councilors, any questions before we have a motion on the resolution for staff or each other?
Nice.
Seeing no hands raised, do I have a motion on resolution number 26-5570?
So moved.
Thank you. Councilor Simpson has made the motion.
I'll second it, President Peterson.
Councilor Gonzalez has seconded it. Any further discussion, councilors? There we go. Good work. Yep. With that, Councilor Lewis.
Sure, thank you. I just want to appreciate all of the work that's been done. I think we've done a lot of appreciating that this has been a, in some ways, long process, and in other ways, it's been a fast process because we did some work group work starting last year, but really we've only had 3 or 4 months of engagement with outside stakeholders and with the full council. So want to lift up that we had some learning moments about how to better work with work groups. I also think we're having some learning moments about how to better work with this agency. This is very much a planning conversation when it comes down to where we're working on land use. But there are other parts of this agency where we need folks to be well-equipped to be messengers and to engage folks. I'm thinking in particular tribal relations. We'll need to have conversations because lots of tribes care about land use. We're going to need to continue with work with folks in parks and nature because they're very close to some of this economic development work as well. So we need to continue to invest time, not only with outside communications, but with internal communications as well. So celebrating that we were able to work together as a work group, and there's more to come. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Rosenthal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wasn't going to say anything, but I think I have at least one comment. First of all, I appreciate all the work that's gone into on the part of the other Metro councilors and all the other people that have submitted the work of WEA in providing some clear suggestions for consideration. I think that's good. It's a step in the right direction. That said, I would have to say, I'm reading over this resolution, I'm reminded there's a problem with lists, and I'll go to therefore number 1. For example, there is nothing in there that mentions the education system. And the education system, including the higher education institutions, are much more important economically than we sometimes give credit for. Now, I could provide that wording, but I've given up doing that. So with that said, the resolution is great in intent, but I will probably not be able to support it.
Councillor Nolan.
Thanks, Madam Chair. And thanks to Councillor Simpson, Councillor Lewis, and Councillor Gonzalez for putting in the effort and convening different points of view on a critically important aspect of Metro's work. We don't talk a lot, or haven't in the past, talked a lot about our role in economic development. And I appreciate that you all have brought that forward as a key. There are a lot of the specific responsibilities we have, like land use, like tourism, like moving toward a region that enjoys and is committed to shared prosperity. This is something that we need to focus on, and I appreciate your putting it in front of us. I also want to particularly highlight what you've modeled in the creation of this proposal, and that is the convening of people with different perspectives on and interests in what needs to be a comprehensive economic development strategy. We've seen arguments among different portions of our community that haven't been productive because they haven't taken the comprehensive look that you three have brought with this resolution. And I am delighted to support it. I am eager to participate in some of the conversations. I'm particularly interested in helping break some of the log jams that we seem to have around readiness of land for job use as well as for supporting housing. Thanks for bringing it. I'm looking forward to voting yes.
Thank you. Councillor Gonzalez.
Thank you, President Peterson. Yeah, just real quick, thank you, Councillor Nolan. Also excited to work with you on those things. Just wanted to, if I could work with Councillor Rosenthal real quick. So Councillor, I know you mentioned you might have some amendments to the resolution. Is there anything that we can do to maybe address some of the items that you have? I'm hearing from you that you have support for the policy, support for the outcomes, support for the investments, and the general direction of what Metro and the Metro Council can support in this work. But it seems that there are maybe some hangups in resolution language. Your support is important to me and to the work group, especially not just for now, but as we continue to do this work. So I'm open to dedicating some minutes here to addressing anything in the resolution, and perhaps we can land somewhere. But I just wanted to ask if there's anything we can do to make changes that would earn your support. Since what I'm hearing from you is that you support it significantly.
I support may I respond? As you noted, I support the intent. I support particularly the jobs ready lands inventory. I support the continued emphasis on equity and the continued emphasis on climate. I support all of this. Frankly, I'd have to say I would rewrite the entire resolution and be more specific, more focused, a little clearer as to who's doing what and what the overall goal of this is, and perhaps even a little clearer as to what Metro's role in this could be. I support Metro's role as a convener. So, like I said, I could have submitted an amendment in that number 1 to say, including but not limited to, or I could have submitted an amendment to add educational systems, because I think educational systems are a key component of economic development. But there really wasn't time to do that, and I didn't have time to consider all the potential wording amendments that I would have made, and it would drag things down. So I'll let it go ahead and pass.
Okay.
And then I'll continue to work on supporting economic development, particularly in my district of Washington County.
Thanks, Counselor, for sure. I appreciate that. So I just wanted to see if there was anything specifically that we could do. It sounds like no, which I can respect, certainly. And I just want to allude to something that Director Charlo mentioned a little bit earlier, that what we're going to be doing here is creating the work plan to create the specificity that I know that you've been asking for. And that's kind of what we're trying to adopt and give staff the ability to move forward on. But anyway, I just wanted to see if there was anything we could do to adjust the resolution language, but feedback was heard.
Our COO would like to take a moment and help through this conversation. Thank you.
If I might offer, we can, as we develop the work plan, we can include, we will include naturally a much higher level of detail. So perhaps Councilor Rosenthal, if you and I could chat about what kind of detail is important to you and the sort of specifics that you would like to see, we could roll that into the work plan that would come back to council. So perhaps that would allow you to support the resolution with, with my commitment that detail will be included in the work plan and subject to council approval.
That could work.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Marisa.
Councilor Gonzalez, did you have anything else to finish?
No, thank you. I just wanted to see if there was anything we could do.
Okay. Thank you. Councilor Simpson.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments, Councilor Rosenthal, and thank you, Councilor Gonzalez and COO Madrigal for that backup there. I will say this is our foundation, and there will be many, many, many more conversations to be had. Like, economic development isn't a one-off situation that we just create this thing and then we just put it down, and that's that. As we continue to build this program up, there are going to be added layers, and I'm glad you pointed out that layer, because we do need to have a relationship with our higher eds in terms of how we create career ladders for folks, particularly in communities that don't have access to career training or technical career training. So I hope that you can understand and see that this is just the base of the work that is going into it. And we will continue to engage not only with our stakeholders and our partners, but with you all as a council as well around this topic. So thank you.
Thank you. With that, Georgia, will you please call the roll?
Yes. I'd also like to note that we do have Evan Goss in the audience for testimony. Councilor Simpson
We are
was
already
wondering.
in the middle of a motion. We can come back.
That is what I assumed as
Okay.
well.
Yep, thanks.
Okay. Councilor Wong.
Aye.
Councilor Lewis.
Aye.
Councilor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilor Rosenthal.
No vote.
Councilor Nolan.
Yes.
Councilor Simpson.
Aye.
Council President Peterson.
Aye, the motion passes. Thank you. And with that, if our one person that came back into the room would like to testify, can we go back and do that?
Council President Peterson, you can open back up public comment, but you've already passed, as you know, on this particular resolution.
Exactly.
Okay. I will promote you to a panelist.
Somebody's taking the time to come, so we might as.
All right, Evan, I'm promoting you to a panelist now.
Thank you, Stephen.
I appreciate you. Thank you very much for allowing me to testify here. hectic week, but thank you very much. Just to introduce myself, my name is Evan Goss-Lamel. I am the Executive Director of the Black American Chamber of Commerce. I just wanted to thank you guys for acknowledging the economic challenges that are facing Greater Portland region right now and taking steps to strategically think about how we can strengthen our regional economy as we move forward. One of the things that have given me real optimism about this resolution that you guys have is the recognition that economic growth and racial equity are not competing goals. The connection that you guys have kind of put emphasis on in this is really moving for me. When more entrepreneurs, when more workers and communities are able to fully participate in our economy, the entire region becomes stronger and more innovative and resilient because of it. Across Oregon, we're seeing an incredible growth in entrepreneurship among communities of color. These businesses are creating jobs, revitalizing neighborhoods, and bringing new energy to our local economies. With the right partnerships, the support systems, and access to opportunity, they present one of the region's greatest untapped economic strengths. Here at the Chamber, we work to help entrepreneurs navigate a lot of these paths to sustain business growth and through many of the programs that we have. And as Metro continues to develop programs like the Job Ready Lands Initiative and Coordinated Regional Economic Development Strategy, we're excited about the potential for collaboration that we'll see here. And we're also excited about the region's economic future because of it. We're looking forward to working with you guys on this on our side, and we're really happy to kind of support this work that you guys are doing. And we're looking forward to seeing the more diverse and competitive space that you guys create because of it. And I'll fall back now. Quick, simple, and sweet.
Thank you for taking the time and coming back and appreciate all the work to date. Thank you.
Thank you. I apologize for running,
We'll take another victory lap. That's what we're doing. Just taking another victory lap.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Apologize for being late again.
All right. Councilors, with that, really ends what we had for the business meeting. So I will adjourn us out of our business meeting and reopen us up into a work session. I will need to leave for another meeting, and Deputy Council President Wong will take the lead for the rest of the work session.
Oh, okay.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Oh.
Okay, well, thank you, President Peterson.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to our work session. And the agenda item is the 2028 Regional Transportation Plan Update Scoping Phase. Our work session today is about the upcoming Regional Transportation Plan, or RTP, update. Today's discussion kicks off a series of council engagements to support this update. Our discussion today will focus on project scope, council's priorities, our shared goals for the RTP, and engagement. And with this, we have a all-star team here. We have Ted Liebold, Metropolitan Planning Organizing Policy Director, Kim Ellis, Regional Transportation Planning Manager, Andre Lacey Walker, RTP Project Manager, and Alfredo Haro, RTP Engagement Lead. Welcome.
Hi, great. Thank you, Deputy Council President Wong and members of the Metro Council. I'm Ted Liebold, the Transportation Policy Director here at Metro, and I wanted to say a few words to introduce today's topic before I hand it off to the project team. Today's work session is a kickoff for the 2028 Regional Transportation Plan. It is called the 2028 Plan because that's when we anticipate and are scheduled to adopt it. So it's time to strap in and get started for a bit of a marathon, but always an exciting race. So the Regional Transportation Plan is one of the most important things we do for our region from a transportation perspective at Metro. It's a critical tool for shaping the transportation future, creating vibrant communities, and achieving our land use and transportation goals, and doing it so in a way that supports the economy and our environment. Over the past month, we've met with you individually and to hear your ideas about what's important to you in this update and to address who we should be engaging. We appreciated that time and being able to speak with you directly in those meetings. And today we're coming back to you to let you know and report back what we heard and make sure that what we heard and how we've synthesized that feedback makes sense to you collectively. It's important to have this kickoff discussions with you to make sure we have your leadership and direction as we start this work, and to ask for further feedback to guide staff in developing the draft work plan and engagement plan over the next few months. So with that, I'm joined today by Kim Ellis and Andre Leitze-Walker and Alfredo Harrow, and I'm going to hand it over to Kim to introduce the team.
Great. Thank you, Ted. Yes, we are very excited to be here today to kick off this update to the Regional Transportation Plan, and I'm really excited to be doing that with the amazing leads, Andre Leitze-Walker, who will be the project manager, is the project manager for this update, and Alfredo Harrow will be leading our engagement and consultation activities in support of this work. As Ted said, the RTP, the Regional Transportation Plan, is a key product that we are responsible for preparing on behalf of the region, working with our partners and the community and advancing things like what you were just talking about in terms of supporting economic development, meeting our climate goals, meeting our equity goals, safety, among others. I want to just remind you, I think you all know this, we're required to do this every 5 years. We also need to meet federal and state requirements, but we want to do so in a way that really aligns with the values and goals that this council and our region have expressed. So while we have requirements, we are doing that in a way that is advancing our broader vision and goals for the region. Today, we want to hear your collective input on what we think we heard in the individual discussions, but also this is a time to really hear about the focus and priorities for this update, how we begin to approach some of the trade-offs that we know we will need to make in the constrained funding environment that we're operating within this update. And also to hear from you about your priorities for engagement. This feedback that you provide today will continue to help us in designing the process, and both in terms of the planning work, the policy discussions to support that, and the engagement strategy that we'll be bringing back to you. And we will begin sharing this information with the Joint Policy Advisory Committee on Transportation next week, as well as other Metro committees and partners over the coming months to bring back to you a draft work plan and engagement plan for you and the Joint Policy and Advisory Committee on Transportation to approve in July. So we have time, and we are working to build a strong foundation to guide this work. So with that, I will turn it over to Andre Leitze-Walker to start us off.
Wonderful. Good morning, Council. Thanks so much for having us. Super excited to be here with you all. And as we launch this scoping phase, I did want to turn your attention to our timeline that we have worked through before, but just wanted to sort of ground us in the conversation. A reminder that we are in phase one that will be running until July of this year, where we're really setting the foundation for the direction of the RTP. We'll be reviewing our plan goals and measures of success, understanding the trends and challenges, and really defining the scope. And that's what this conversation is going to lead us into. So phases 2, 3, and 4 are really the bulk of the plan development. And the work that we do in this scoping phase will have a significant impact on what that looks like. We're also going to be talking about the call for projects element of the plan as well. And so I just wanted to sort of give you the timeline moving towards a adoption by November 30th of 2028. I also wanted to, I know you've all been involved in RTP, so happy to have such a seasoned crew of counselors, but just wanted to ground us in what the RTP is. And it's a really key tool for implementing the 2040 growth concept, as well as the climate smart strategy. It sets the goals and policies for moving people and goods throughout this region safely, reliably, and affordably, not just today, but for decades into the future. It uses projections of future population and job growth to identify the travel needs and generate solutions into the future. And it also is an opportunity to coordinate local, regional, and state investments into our regional system. And last but certainly not least is it establishes priorities as well as eligibility for federal and state funding for regional projects. Okay, so yeah, why is scoping important? Well, this early direction from you all helps us ensure that the update from the beginning through the end reflects our regional priorities. Your input will contribute to the focus and priorities of the update, our work plan, as well as our engagement plan, and how the region will address emerging challenges, as well as how we will balance potential trade-offs. So it's 2026. We last adopted in 2023, and a lot has changed. There is revenue uncertainty and federal volatility, as you all know. There's been reduced transit funding. There's changing travel patterns and behaviors. We continue to see death and severe injury throughout our transportation network, as well as growing climate impacts and expectations. And as we just heard, there's economic concerns about job growth in our region as well. So we did have one-on-one sessions with you all and wanted to take a moment to sort of elevate what we heard from those conversations and then ask you if there's anything that we missed or anything you wanted to share additionally. So we heard very clearly that elevating safety was a priority for you all, as well as strengthening the region of the RTP's economic focus. Setting the table for updating the region's transit vision, providing clarity on available revenue to support future efforts and to bring more transportation funding to the region. You asked us to be very clear about navigating trade-offs created by the state and federal funding uncertainty, communicating honestly about our ability to meet the region's climate goals. You asked us to be sure that we're elevating community voices and priorities and making sure that we're optimizing local participation, recognizing that this is a regional plan, and yes, it is managed and led by Metro, but success requires input from all of our partners. So the first question we have for you all is, based on our recent individual conversations, do the policy outcomes that we listed on the last slide, do they reflect your priorities, and is anything missing? And I'm happy to turn back to the previous slide so you can look at those, but just wanted to make sure that these align with you and that they feel good, and if anything is missing, we want to make sure that we include it moving forward.
Thank you. Councilors. Councilor Nolan.
How you doing, baby? Sorry for going so long.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'm hearing some interesting, potentially conflicting, at least competing notions around our climate goals. It's not only the region's climate goals. I think we have to continue to be cognizant that we are a major part of the state's climate goals and have a role to play there. Can you explain a little more what communicating honestly about ability to meet regions' climate goals means? I would like to interpret that to mean that we acknowledge the goals and we communicate honestly about what it will take to achieve them and put that into the plan as an option. But I'm concerned that the wording here might be about, well, that was a great goal, but we can't really get there, so let's not bother.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm happy to answer. I think key here is communicating honestly about the goals that we're setting and making sure that we are not setting goals that we cannot reach, and making sure that the goals that we put out are, and if there's reasons, I mean, we are not solely in control of our climate outcomes, but we don't want to be, I don't want to produce a plan that has conflicting projects and that are different from our goals. So I don't think we should be putting in projects that are not in alignment with our climate goals. And so I think being very clear about what are our climate goals and are the projects that we're putting on the list leading to those goals.
If I might just have a quick follow-up. I really appreciate the way that you posed that, because I think we're getting to a point, we're probably past the point where we need to acknowledge the urgency of the climate goals and particularly establish those at the beginning of the process so that we collectively know within this region that we will be evaluating proposed projects on a number of things, but that one of the things will include their impact on, at a minimum, something we can measure, which is greenhouse gas emissions in the region. And that we are not going to be going down a road or a path that says, well, we've got these climate goals, but we're still going to approve or include a project that we know takes us further from that outcome than we are today.
Yeah, I think that's totally reasonable. I did notice you wanted to make a comment, Kim, so I'll open up the floor for you.
No, thank you. I think, Councilor Nolan, I think in addition to what Andre described, I think we want to also be able to share what, analysis that's going to show what it takes to meet these climate goals and where, documenting where we are falling short, because we are making progress in many ways, but we do know that we are falling short at the regional level, but also at the state level. And there is work happening at the state level to document that we can use to help inform the conversations going forward.
I hope the honesty includes, and Mr. Chair, I'm done after this comment. I hope the honesty includes that we have not really been pursuing the goals we've stated, and that something has to change if we are going to be serious about protecting our population from the effects that we've seen of flooding, wildfires, other climate change-induced events that are threatening property as well as health and lives. That's where we need to be honest.
Thank you. Councilor Lewis.
Sure, thank you so much. I'm just going to start by reminding us the last time we went through this cycle, we were living in the world where we were anticipating IIJA money, wonderful resource that could actually help move forward so much of our region's agenda in transportation. And now we're going to be pushing through a plan in this world where federal uncertainty around transportation projects has basically set us back in every single one of our regional priorities. And it's not just climate projects, it's every project. And I think to add to that, we also have uncertainty about the future of transportation funding. Right now, we have a very elegant model of user pay because that is what gas tax is. But we're starting to see people speak of pulling away gas tax without having fully formed ideas around how future user pay will continue as a transportation funding strategy. So I think it's really important for us, yes, to use this RTP as the focus point for projects, but it's most particular that we are going to have to really grapple with the revenue side and not just take the constrained list amount that's given to us, but have to really start to say, here's the stuff that we can't have until we fix the revenue problem. Because this is not just one side of the ledger, it's an exercise in both sides of the ledger, if we're being honest about where this country and where this state are. And then looking through the priorities presented in front, I agree with all of them. Particularly, I want to underscore the investments that we're so far behind on safety. And so many of those investments are small and bite size and might actually be able to be addressed even in a funding constrained universe that we live in. When we are going through our planning process, I want to be clear that we should be learning from the engagements that we've had, particularly just last week in the 2040, Future Visions. But we want to be working with creatives to help us engage in ways that involve creative practices and bring new voices and perspectives to the table. And I think we'll have a resolution with more flesh on that to come, but I wanted to state that for the record here today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Rosenthal.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. I have a number of suggestions, I guess you'd call them, or maybe just comments. First of all, under the second bullet, strengthening, I would add something to that that says that ensure that future transportation vision is compatible with any developed CEP, coordinated economic program. Not just strengthening it, but making sure that the vision is consistent with and supports that. That's one thing. Another thing that I would clarify the navigating trade-offs. I think the situation we're in terms of federal funding and in fact federal administration in general is much more challenging than that suggests. I would say we need to have something that says, and considering the funding mechanisms that is going through at the state, I think we need to clarify that and say, continue to evaluate funding options for the special transportation needs in the metropolitan area. As you know, different counties have different authorities, or they have the same authorities, but they exercise them differently. And I think this is something that we need to continue to evaluate as we go forward. I support Councilor Lewis's comment that we don't have a priority regarding safety, and maybe we should develop one on that. And then finally, I would say we should probably add a priority that maintaining equity in all the transportation projects and promoting racial equity in all the transportation measures that get passed and spent and constructed is something that we should probably add as a priority. I think we just talked about that this morning. So it extends the list, I'm afraid, but I think these are all fairly straightforward.
Thank you.
Councilor Gonzalez.
Thanks, Chair Wong. Yeah, I want to keep the conversation going for what Councilor Nolan opened with the honesty about the region's climate goals. And, having participated heavily in the 2023 RTP plan, I really appreciate us bringing this to the forefront because I think there are some elephants in the room that this region needs to have a reckoning with. And I think that is what you are alluding to here, that in the 2023 RTP plan, it's not just the project things, but major programs that are needed to help us meet our region's climate goals. And there is none other greater than congestion pricing and tolling, which this region and Clackamas County in particular rejected pretty aggressively with I-205. And was kind of rejected by the legislature in some ways. I think the jury's still out on that. And so I think, to me, my biggest worry is without that, this region cannot meet its goals. Second is the transit funding cliff and the hundreds of thousands of signatures that were collected at a statewide level that impacts our ability to fund our transit system remotely at the level that we need to even sustain our current funding, let alone to meet the future, climate and mode shift goals that we have. To me, those are the two major things that we need to reckon with and understand that those things that are, I don't want to say above the jurisdiction of Metro, they are part of the work, and we need to sharpen our elbows and influence as much as possible the discussion that we have around there. But I do think there have been very clear political signals at a state level and at a regional level that those policies kind of, at least in the short term for this RTP, are very challenging. So I think that's what you're alluding to, and I think it is important for us to talk about that, because in this 2023 RTP, we assumed that we would be like light years ahead implementation and planning of congestion pricing. I think we're farther now than we were 8 years ago. And so what does that mean? And what does it also mean to have state goals where the state legislature themselves are not meeting up to their own goals, right? And so I think I'm kind of to what was shared earlier, there is a reckoning, and I think hopefully this is an opportunity for us to bring our leadership and to say, ring the alarm bells, to Councillor Nolan's point, that we have these goals, we have these shared truths, and I think, like, for me, is that where Oregonians actually are right now? Because I don't know. I think we need to figure that out. And I think we need to be able to have that hard conversation. And when I say Oregonians in general, I mean in terms of like the willingness to pay for something that we say is important to us. They're saying that it's important to us and then taking the steps to do it. So anyway, I just wanted to continue to contribute to that dialogue. I actually welcome more of the council. Like, I would appreciate us talking about this. I'm sure Councilor Nolan, I would love to hear your thoughts as well in regards to what I just shared. But all of us, because this is the true third rail for this RTP that we need to surface and have conversations with people about. And from talking with constituents, I just don't know that there's any political feasibility to congestion pricing in this economic recession that we're in. So anyway, I could be very wrong. I would love to be wrong. But that's what we need to figure out. Let's keep the conversation going.
Great. I think a couple of things I've noticed from this list for me are, given kind of the constrained environment that we've been talking about, what are the most tactical investments that we can make? And I think this is to Councilor Lewis's point, is like there are bite-sized projects out there that make a big difference. And I'd really like to be able to compare and assess and strategize around those. Like, what are the projects based on historical data that provides the most return on investment or bang for buck sort of thing? And I'm thinking of like safe routes investments or things of that vein, and like what's working and how much are they costing sort of thing. And I don't really see that as a lens of like how do we get the most out of our investments. And then I think many of us have read about abundance, but we don't have a time of resource abundance necessarily coming up. But I think part of the point of that school of thought was to make things easier on ourselves. And one of the examples they gave was actually in the housing space, or affordable housing space in particular, where we have a lot of regulations, we have a lot of expectations, and it's very expensive to do a relatively straightforward thing. And I know a lot of our jurisdictional partners in the housing world are looking at permitting, looking at how to streamline when we build housing of all types. Like, how do we make permits flow faster? How do we get to yes? How do we, so I'm wondering if there's any of that we can apply to the transportation space as well. Like, it costs a lot to build a sidewalk and a crosswalk. Like, why is it that expensive? Like, is it, because I know the concrete costs a certain amount, but like, why is it that expensive, right? And I don't know if there's space in the RTP to interrogate that, but if we're interrogating that in the housing space, why can't we do it in the transportation space? Like, it should not be that hard to build a sidewalk, and I think there's a lot of energy around that, but like, we're getting in our own way somehow, and I'd like to think that a little bit more about that. If we can't like generate a ton more money, but like we can apply what we got more effectively, what would that look like, and what would the benefits be? So 2 things I've been thinking about or noodling on this as well is maybe maybe there's some like tactical, like regulatory reform that we can do, or at least start a conversation on, like, we're not the regulators of, you know, roads and streets, but something's not heading up, in my opinion.
Agree.
Okay, Councilor Rosenthal.
Yeah, I just wanted to add support for what Councilor Gonzalez said, that I think some form of congestion pricing, and I won't specify what form, is probably going to be necessary to meet our climate goals, probably going to be also important in meeting our economic development goals, and it may be critical in meeting some of our safety goals. So I think it is something that we have a special obligation as this region, the biggest economic engine in the state, to address that specifically.
Mm-hmm. Can I add one more thing?
Yeah.
That I thank you so much for bringing up the abundance conversation. I think it is important for us to find a way to deliver projects better, and I always think about different like realm of building things, but in our affordable housing bond program, our oversight committee, I never forgot this data, that 30% of the costs in building an affordable housing unit is attributed to the process, like lawyers, bankers, and fees, just like time that it takes to get it through. And I always think about if you could cut that in half, I mean, how many more units could you squeeze in? And anyway, I think about that as being such a relevant example. And I'm sure there's probably things with NEPA and with a whole bunch of things that it takes to federalize projects that we can maybe ask our delegation to work on, that I think is really interesting, and I think is a mandate that we have to figure out how we do that. I think one topic that I really hope that we can talk about, and this kind of comes back to the congestion pricing and transit thing, is how we pay for transit in the region. Almost every single city in this country pays for it with a sales tax, a tool that we don't have. What we have done here historically is we pay for it with employer payroll taxes and employee payroll taxes, as you know. And that is just that links transit to a very clear economic development strategy. I think that's how we rationalize it and justified it. We want people to be able to get to their jobs. That's why employers pay it. And I think as the world of work changes, and another thing that is super alarming, or just, I guess not alarming, but interesting to me, is that in our JPAC meetings, I know folks all wake up at 7:30 in the morning once a month to watch those, is that we have this thing called the Transit Minute that Ali Holmquist puts together. And in that chart that we put up around transit ridership is not only that we are always bouncing between 60 to 70% of pre-pandemic ridership, which structural issue for us going forward when most other metro areas have recovered. The thing that has stuck out to me the most is that our region, I think, is the top region in terms of remote and hybrid work of any other region in the country, which to me says that people here are moving so differently and there's a stickiness there that other regions are not moving back to. So I think even the way that we pay for transit has baked in, to me, why the transit funding at the state level kind of fell apart, is because the economic rationale and the policy that we tied there with employer payroll tax to now employees not going to work in the office as much here in Oregon, there's like, it just kind of it makes sense to me when I look at it that way. And I think we have a duty to really look at, does that way to pay for transit make sense going forward, especially if we want to find a new kind of environment to raise the resources in, or what are other policies that we need to change to bring workers back into the downtown or into our employment centers and things like that, which, I mean, I think there's these really strong connections to me that we should not be like assuming that these things that we have inherited for 20, 30 years maybe hold their water or hold their weight going forward. I think it's really important for us to think about. Thank you for letting me wax on that.
No, thank you. We do have a couple more questions. So I just wanted to say thank you. I hear you. It does sound like the overall priorities that we captured from our one-on-ones are in alignment, and there are some additions that we can be making. So I want you to let you know that we are capturing those. And I was able to organize my thoughts a little bit more around clarity on goals. And I think it's, if we can't reach our goals, we need to explicitly state why, as opposed to setting them and not meeting them and not saying anything about it. But I would like to move us forward. I see some questions, sorry.
I don't know. I can hold, I also am director responding to Councilor Gonzalez.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's really important to look at transit service as potentially kind of a two-track conversation, and that we do have to incorporate transit for the future capital investments into the RTP. But in terms of service and the funding challenges, I think that is existent outside of the RTP. And in particular, as Councilor Gonzalez brought up, ridership, he said that it had recovered in other places. Those places are few and far between. So while we are not as caught up to pre-pandemic numbers with our high 60s, this is a national trend. I think the only place that has surpassed pre-COVID numbers is Nashville, if I got that one right. So what can we learn about the one or two places that have fully caught up? And I'm gonna guess it's on the service end and the affordability end, looking at New York. And it's not gonna be on more capital projects. So I would love to figure out how to have a service level conversation that maybe needs to partially live outside of the RTP.
Councilor Rosenthal.
Thanks, Deputy Chair Hong. Just a quick question. Have you scheduled a meeting presentation on the importance or the complexity of the RTP with the Future Vision Commission? I'm just wondering if that is, I didn't see that, maybe I missed it on the schedule.
Not currently, but we are working with the Future Vision staff on how and what we do bring forward, and also what we can learn from their conversations and engagement activities to inform the RTP. So we will work with the team on that.
It will be in the works at some time. Thanks.
I see one more.
Oh, there's more. Okay. Councilor Nolan.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and I understand we're eager to move on in this discussion. Attention to, and this is responding to Councilor Gonzalez's comments about taking the pulse and blending it with the proposals about climate, but I think we need to have honest communication about all aspects of the RTP, the impact that different projects or proposals or types of projects has not only on climate, but on traffic diversion or traffic smoothing or time of day traffic. We as a people, Americans like to think that roads and highways are sort of self-propagating assets, that no one has to pay for them, they're just there. And I just want to make sure that as we look at all of this, that we be clear about the cost of adding a lane mile as compared with improving transit. And maybe, certainly Councilor Gonzalez makes a good point that we have to be creative about what those tools are and how we're paying for them. But I think it would be a big mistake, almost an abdication of our responsibilities, if we allowed, if we encouraged a mindset that says, we don't have to pay for transportation to have our single occupant cars driving us everywhere, because it's just sort of part of nature. We have to be, this is an opportunity to educate the public as well as our regional partners to look more deeply at the consequences of using the airshed as a common dumping ground.
Okay.
Thank you. I will move us forward. Let's see if we can get the slides back up, please. Thank you so much. Oh, I might not be. Oh, there we go. So in addition to what we heard from you during our one-on-ones, we actually already had established key outcomes that were developed during the 2023 RTP, and those are safety, equity, mobility, a thriving economy, and climate action and resilience. And so the question for you today is, are the current goals of safety, equity, mobility, climate, and thriving economy still shared goals for the 2028 transportation plan?
Colleagues. Councilor Nolan.
Mr. Chair, thanks. I would like us to think a little Hippocratically about having as a goal that we first want our regional transportation plan to do no harm to the progress we've made on safety, on mobility, on all of these things, and that we evaluate proposals or projects based on whether their net contribution, and I understand this can be complicated to measure, but we've got a team of people who are really clever at how to analyze the impacts that that we want our regional transportation plan for the next 5 years to do no harm, to not create more safety problems, to not create more traffic jams, to not create more greenhouse gases. And that's not a bullet in there, that's an umbrella kind of ambition.
Thank you, Councilor Nolan. I think for me, I'd like to see an element of, we're in a time where trust in state and local government is low. And how can we use an effective kind of RTP system to help rebuild trust in the system? And I think part of that is actually in efficiency and expediency. Like, we talk a lot about projects, but we don't get to the doing of projects as fast as we could. So, I'm actually of the mind that we should have less of these big projects and everything overall, but just get back to the bread and butter of delivering an excellent transportation system that's well-maintained and safe and efficient. And I think all the goals that we have are really important, but they're only impactful if we actually get to the doing part. So what can we do to increase or decrease the turnaround time? And yeah, we see that in I think other parts of the country where by removing some of the regulatory roadblocks, we actually get to that project faster. So just a thought for me. I'll turn over to Councilor Rosenthal.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. Just a quick note. I think all the goals that you put up on the slide are great. They all depend on sustainable funding strategy. And I think we can't quite take that for granted as we used to. We may have to have a new strategy.
Thank you.
Agreed. I'll say something.
Councilor Gonzalez.
Yeah, just to build on what Councilor Wong said, really singing my tune there. And I think that I think there's just deep questions and conversations that I would love for this process to have. I mean, there's other themes too about how I want us to learn about why is it that when we build our transportation projects, we outsource so much of the work to these very expensive consulting firms and planning firms, and what are the trade-offs there for us having the capacity to do some of that work ourselves and kind of bringing back in that efficient. Anyway, I think there's a lot of different things that we should not be afraid to, like the third rails, like that. Again, I just think like elevating these to a much broader discussion and helping people understand why do things cost so much, or why do things take so long, or these things are the currency of trust and expediency and delivering and being like, yeah, I trust my government to build a sidewalk. They said they were, and now they're doing it. I think is like understated how essential it is for us to be able to turn those things around much quicker.
Thank you. Oh, okay. Back to the slides, please. I just want to say I'm really hearing this recurring theme of transparency across the board, and so I think we'll definitely work with the team to figure out how we can sort of elevate transparency throughout this process. So now, yeah, I wanted to hop into a highlight of our revenues and project list, which is a very significant part of the RTP planning process. Just wanted to call out that the project costs are limited to expected revenues from local sources, state sources, tribal sources, regional and federal sources as well. If you look in the top left of this slide, we have a distribution of where the RTP revenue comes from. And you can see that it's actually fairly evenly distributed from these various sources. But the projects in the RTP are, as I mentioned before, eligible for federal and state funding. And the project list needs to be in alignment with the RTP goals and policies and make progress towards our performance targets. And in the bottom left of the slide, we have a graphic showing the distribution of capital versus operation and maintenance projects, with 60% of the projects in the project list being operations and maintenance, and the other 40% representing capital projects. And this graphic really highlights sort of the phasing for the development of the project list. A couple things I wanted to call out specifically are the RTP policy framework, the revenue forecast, and the needs analysis as being sort of the key elements that go into the development of the project list. Something that's also really important to note is that the project list is also informed by local transportation system plans, project development work that's underway in the region, as well as state priorities identified by ODOT and the legislature, and priorities identified by TriMet and SMART in their respective transit service plans. We also want to just reiterate the fact that we will have engagement activities throughout the course of the project. And then, yes, so some key considerations. These questions don't need to be answered today. We actually have a bit of a broader question on the next slide, but these are some things that we are going to be thinking about, and we encourage you all to be thinking about as well. And it's how can the project list update and review process be improved? How should we balance investments across the adopted goal areas? How should the RTP balance large-scale capital projects with ongoing system maintenance needs, as well as local spending priorities, recognizing sort of the autonomy of local and state and transit agencies as well, and their decision-making processes? And how should the RTP goals and performance targets guide project prioritization and investment decisions? And so, like I mentioned, these don't need to be answered today, but as we move towards the call for projects, these are things that we're going to continue to be thinking about, and welcome any feedback you have. But the question we have specifically for you all today is, what are your desired outcomes for the call for projects phase of the RTP?
Councilor Lewis.
Sure, thanks so much. I think it's really important that we make sure that everybody and anybody who has a project can get the project on the list, even if it is not going to rise eventually. For me, that really means making sure that we are engaging with our smaller cities, giving them technical assistance, and not letting the process of getting through the process be a barrier. I also want to make sure that we're doing good outreach to community groups and on the ground transportation activists who have these things in their head that they don't always see reflected in local plans. And if they can use our process as a motivator to get those improvements into plans at the local level, I think we want to incentivize that through our process and our call for projects. And then finally, we obviously have seen some different levels of funding go to tribally led projects in the transportation space, and we need to make sure to recognize that in this call for projects.
Absolutely, thank you.
Councilor Rosenbaum.
Thank you, Councilor Wong. The only thing I would say is that a question, and I'll throw this question to you because I don't know the answer yet, and you probably don't either, is how will this project list prioritization be affected by the future vision or by a longer-term transportation vision? Should it be, and how should it be?
That's a great question, and I'm really excited to continue to work with the Future Vision team to understand the relationship between the RTP and the Future Vision. I can say that as an RTP project manager, I actually do sit on the internal Future Vision sort of work group, and so we're going to continue to have conversations through both of these processes.
Yes, and I would add on to that that some of the future vision work is not going to be completed in time to fully be reflected in the regional transportation plan. So I also want to sort of manage expectations about what we can do, but we will be, as Andre said, working very closely with them and bringing in what we can. But the RTP update will be, wrapping up within a year after the future vision work. And there is further implementation work that needs to happen to implement that future vision, starting with an update to the regional framework plan, the 2040 growth concept, and all of that collectively will be influencing the next RTP update. So there will be things that we can do in this RTP update, and there'll be other things that we will need to defer to the next RTP update. And we can be clear about what that is and what we can and cannot do as we go forward.
I think for me, Councilor Lewis and I are often in the big tent school of thought where we want all the projects to be in there, have their time, but constrained by reality. I do want to say that I think in the community engagement piece, especially, probably for you, Alfredo, is like, I don't want us or jurisdictions to make promises that they probably won't be able to keep. I think that's going to be really important when you're calling for new projects, that not everyone's project will get funded. Not everyone's projects, will make it into the final RTP. I think it's great to collect that because we want to see what the true need of a system is and what, hopes and dreams are for, community members and jurisdictions. But I think we just got to be really real around the resource constraint and also take the opportunity to do civic education. We're in this position because of a lot of different reasons, and it's not any one government's fault. It's not, I think we just want to be honest with our constituents around here's the reality that we're in, and we're not going to make promises, and we're going to explain why we're here and what the best solutions are. And I think that's probably what I expect out of this community engagement, because it's not going to be a project free-for-all sort of thing. So yeah, I think meeting voters where they're at and talk to them like adults.
Thank you. Well, on that note, I'm actually going to pass it over to Alfredo to talk about our engagement. So perfect timing.
Yes, great timing. Can I get help with this? Okay, well, good afternoon, councilors. I'm Alfredo Haro. My pronouns. Well, good afternoon, councilors. I'm Alfredo Haro. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I'm really excited to be the engagement lead for the 2028 RTP update and to share a little bit about our engagement and consultation efforts. As we're continuing through the scoping phase and looking ahead to the rest of the update, our approach continues to build on the strengths of our regional partnerships and community relationships. We're committed to developing an engagement strategy that reflects the region's communities and ensures meaningful participation throughout the process. So this also includes reviewing our successes from previous cycles as well as the ongoing programs to understand where we might adjust our engagement. But we do know that the update will involve consultation and engagement with tribes, state and regional jurisdictional agencies. We will also collaborate closely with local governments, community organizations, business and community leaders. All the while, we will be seeking the Metro Council's guidance. And during the scoping phase, we've already gathered some of your priorities and input on how to engage partners and the public throughout the process, which I'll go into in my next slide. Oh, perfect. And we've synthesized the feedback you've provided thus far to the RTP team regarding innovative and successful engagement strategies. We've heard calls for community level engagement. This looks like neighborhood level outreach, highlighting success stories across the region and engaging community members who experience transportation challenges. We've heard calls for digital and story-based engagement. Examples include developing mobile-friendly content, creating social media content featuring community voices, and using narrative-driven storytelling. We've also heard the importance of partnering with community organizations interested in transportation, as well as existing transportation programs. There is also a call to give partners and community a multitude of ways to meaningfully engage, whether that is in person, virtual, or hybrid convenings. Next slide, please. So with that overview, and based on our scoping progress thus far, the RTP team would like to know if there's additional feedback on the 2028 outreach and engagement efforts.
Councilor Rosenthal.
Thank you, Councilor Swan. Just a suggestion for you, take under advisement and do it if it seems appropriate, is perhaps engage with the legislature members from our district. We have a lot of them, and as you know, they're sort of concerned with transportation right now. And it's an unresolved conflict, as you know, so.
Colleagues, any other comments, Stephen?
Yeah.
Gonzalez?
Thanks, Chair Wong. I think, especially after COVID, there just feels like there's been such a massive shift in just who's at the table for things, you know what I mean? Like a lot of people retired or maybe left or just shifted jobs. And so I feel this urge to help build the next generation of transportation leaders in the region, elected, non-elected, thanks to Councilor Simpson's leadership. And I know the council, for example, we regionalized the transportation school program at PSU. So using tools like that as Councilor Wong talked about, education, really helping mobilize people, understanding the system is huge. And I think often what I learned in my first RTP, which was a lot, still trying to unplug the fire hose from all the learning there, is that there's kind of this chicken and egg scenario where people are like, oh, RTP is the future vision of our transportation system, which it kind of is in our policy and our programs and some of the ways that influence. But also, the RTP is a project list, and Metro does not own any projects. The project lists all come from our cities and from the counties. So, we don't nominate we don't really have a role in defining what the projects are for the region. We create the conditions that then rank the project prioritization, I guess, if that's right, based off of the values that we have. And so I think there's this chicken and egg thing that happens that I think to be just really cognizant about, that the RTP will not be, I think, what some folks maybe want it to be in terms of that future transportation vision. But I do think that our leadership and our community's leadership in city TSPs and county TSPs, that is where the future vision of our transportation comes in, because it's the grass tops and the grassroots. And I think that's something Metro has done so well for years and years. And so I'm just kind of like hearing those tensions about community engagement and what does it mean to kind of design and fix all the world's problems with RTP, while also recognizing that a lot of this, like Councilor Lewis mentioned, comes from very small cities, but also very big cities. And what projects get prioritized within those communities inform what is in the RTP. So it's kind of like this beautiful dance of democracy and of prioritization that I think we need to educate and mobilize people to be champions in their communities as well. So just kind of trying to bring that back into that comment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Lewis.
Yeah, sure. I said this earlier, but this is the appropriate question to answer it under. I think creative practices and making sure that we are engaging folks in that way. But I think more generally needing to be authentic in that when a lot of people show up to a transportation space, they're going to tell us about a specific intersection or a pothole or a sidewalk improvement project that just didn't go the way that they thought it would. And I think it's really important on us to find ways not only to say, thank you for being here, you wrote that down, we never to see the light of day, but to have tools available to help those people make a connection from the thing that they're there to talk about to a larger project or something that is actually at the level of the RTP. And that may come from making like, not really a glossary, but a little bit more of an index of how some of these projects are connected. So that we have materials for folks who can't kind of generate on their own. But I would look forward to having this be an iterative process. If somebody comes in with something that isn't RTP ready, us help them get their comment RTP ready. So we can really reflect on what they need.
I love that. Thank you.
That's it for me. Yeah,
Great.
thank you, comments, for all helping us provide meaningful engagement.
If we could pull up the slides again. Just want to go over some next steps. So it's March through May. We're going to continue to seek feedback on proposed processes and policy outcomes. And so just really want to appreciate you all for being our first stop and really setting the foundation for this scoping phase. I'm feeling really inspired and motivated and excited to continue to work with you all through the entirety of the RTP process. We're going to be seeking feedback on our draft work plan and engagement plan in June. And then in July, we'll be taking that to TPAC, JPAC, and back to you for action on our official work plans and engagement plans. And I just want to thank you so much for your time and your commitment to this work. I'm excited for the journey ahead.
And thank you.
Yeah,
looking forward to it. It's going to be a fun 2 years?
3.
3 years.
Okay. Yeah. Yep.
Great.
Appreciate it.
Well, I'm sure we'll see you soon.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to COO Communications.
Hello. One moment, I'm just going to pull up. There we go. Good morning, good afternoon. I guess we're into the lunch hour, so I will make this quick. Just a couple of things today, just to remind Metro staff and everyone aside from counselors, so you have separate requirements through the state, that annual required forms are due this Friday, March 13th. Those include the conflict of interest disclosure, outside employment, nepotism, and personal relationships and employee ethics policies. So please do, staff, read through those forms and instructions and reach out to your supervisors if you have any questions. It's also the time of year to submit a your telework agreement to your supervisor for approval, if you have one. And then in the theme of our conversation earlier about economic development, I wanted to let folks know that there will be local food carts at the Lloyd Center Tower at 825 Multnomah from 11 to 2 every day this week. PBOT at the City of Portland is piloting a food truck program that permits food trucks to park and vend on city streets. So this is a great chance to support local businesses and eat delicious food. Today's trucks are the Chop Spot and Fried. Tomorrow it'll be 808 Grinds and Tamale Boy. And let's see, Christie's Smash Burger and Northeast Creperie will be there on Thursday. And Friday's food truck will be Cocina Mexico Lindo, which sounds delicious. So
Where's this?
it's 825 Northeast Multnomah, so a couple blocks north of us and over here in the Lloyd Center neighborhood. So gotta support our local folks and eat good food.
Who wants to go after this? I'm down. Let's go?
Yeah.
Love it.
All right.
0.3 miles.
No quorum.
Okay, let's do it.
That's
Okay,
all, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Communications, holding up from food carts, so make it quick. Councilor Rosenthal.
Yeah, thanks. I want to report, I attended the elected officials portion of the town hall held by Congresswoman Suzanne Bonamici yesterday, and the general theme presented by the elected officials at that was one of very great concern for security and safety and of many portions of their community. The uncertainty, particularly surrounding some of the ICE actions, it was something that everybody stressed. And in the town hall, Congressman Bonamici said that to the extent that this has been declared that we are now at war, that this war is unconstitutional and illegal.
Thank you.
Grateful for that.
Okay, thank you. Well, seeing no further discussion, the council meeting is adjourned. Our next regular meeting is scheduled for March 12th at 10:30.